Alright, in this video we're going to talk about the wind settings available in your terrain. Now, you'll see these over in the settings. These only pertain to grasses that you have painted down. They do not pertain to trees. Trees are actually slave to a wind zone, which is something we'll talk about at the end of this video. So here inside our settings, first off we have the wind speed. That's exactly what the name suggests it is. It's how quickly the wind is blowing. As a matter of fact, if I hit Control-Shift-P, or, well, let's just click up here and unpause, you can see how fast the wind is blowing with a setting of 1. Now if I pause that back and bring the wind speed back down, then we've just slowed down the wind. That's really all there is to it. Now our next setting is size, and this is kind of like the size of the wind cells that are rattling the grass around. You can kind of see there's a bit of a turbulent look to the wind right now. It's not being evenly distributed all across the grass.
Right.
And that's what this controls. So if I tap pause so I can get over here without moving the camera, and we pull this down to 0, now you'll notice all of the grass is moving.
It's same.
Yeah, it's moving uniformly. So it's just kind of an indicator of how much turbulence you want in that grass. If I pull it to around 0.5, you see the size of those cells has updated a bit. Now at the bottom we have the bending. This controls how much that grass will bend. So if we pull this back to 0, it looks like we have no wind because we don't. Our grass can't respond to it anymore. So this is a way to dial back how much your grass is affected by the wind. Now we had this all the way up at 1, so it was really, really severe. Maybe something down about like here would be a little bit more realistic, but again, for every project you can tweak it and get it exactly where you want it to be. Finally, you have the grass tint. I gotta admit, this is kind of a cool little property. I'm not entirely sure where I'd use it. You can use this to tint the grass based on the wind. So I mean, I guess, you know, if you're doing like the great big rolling plains of grass like on what that
Dances
one,
Wolves?
Sure, why not? And you can see like the the ripples moving through it. If you really want to visualize that, you could probably turn on a little bit of just the right shade of tint and it would help bring it out a little more. But check this out. If we hit play now, oh, I actually hit stop. Okay, let's fly back out there to the grass. Sorry, I have a super fast controller just for these purposes. And here we are. So I've added a red tint, and if we watch the grass, there is a bit of a red creep that slides across it. So you're literally tinting the grass based on the wind, which is kind of cool. Now I'm going to hit Control-Shift-P and pause this back. Now that is all of the wind settings, but again, those only pertain to grass in our levels. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about wind in your trees, which requires a wind zone. It's very easy to set up. So I've already got one in the scene. I'm going to go ahead and just delete it. To create one, let me go ahead and get out of play mode just in case so nothing terrible happens. And we'll move the camera away, then delete the wind zone when we're not in play mode to make sure it's good and gone. Creating one is simply as easy as going under Create and making a wind zone. If we fly over to it, the gizmo has a direction. This controls the direction in which the wind will be blowing. You can just rotate it to whatever direction you want the wind to be. It has some very basic settings. First off, the mode. It says directional and spherical. Spherical is if you need to take this wind and contain it to a specific area. The wind will only exist within this sphere, and of course you can take the radius property and change that sphere as you need to. On the other hand, directional is kind of an infinite wind. It's everywhere in your level all at the same time.
Right, and with your the spherical wind, it's actually going to start from the center of the sphere and blow outwards to the radius.
Next we have our wind main. This is kind of like your basic wind speed. So as you increase this, your wind blows faster. And then you have your wind turbulence. This controls the turbulent factor of your wind. How much is the original speed is going to be offset. Your pulse magnitude and pulse frequency control, it's kind of like the rate of the turbulence. Your magnitude controls how hard that turbulence is going to hit, and the frequency controls kind of like the amount of jitter you'll notice in things. Now, it's best to see this in action. So let's come take a look at our trees. There we go. And, well, if I hit play, we're going to kind of fly away anyway. So I'll just kind of look up at the trees. We can watch this. Now, let's see if I can look up, and I can right-click up here on the title bar, and then that'll take focus away. So now we can sit here and play with these settings. So as I increase wind main, you'll notice the trees are getting pushed further and further. I can increase the wind turbulence, and they start shaking a lot harder. We also have the pulse magnitude, which is offsetting how that turbulence is being affected, and our pulse frequency, which is really making them shake around a lot more hardly.
Now, if you just put in a wind zone and your trees aren't moving, there's a reason why.
That's right. And matter of fact, if we go under our tree settings here inside the terrain, like so. Now I need to get out of play mode to really show this off. If we select either one of these trees and go under Edit Tree, you'll see that our bend factor is currently set to 1. This controls how much bending these trees are allowed to take on. So if you notice that some trees are bending far too much or far too little, you can adjust this factor. So if you have some trees that should be stronger, then you can pull this down. If you have some trees that should really be blowing around, then you can raise this up.
Right, and by default, it comes in with a bend factor of 0. So you actually do have to come in here and raise it to something other than 0 if you want your trees to blow around.
That's right. So that's a look at our various wind settings as well as how to establish wind for your trees. That'll wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.